Once more, we're doing a different sort of audio book this time. It's a video of me reading my story, Chasing the Dragon, which was published in 2018. It's like I say, it's just me reading it, starting over in three, two, one. For this audiobook edition, we're doing something a bit different again. It's going to be me reading my own story, Chasing the Dragon, which was published in 2018. The reading wasn't the smoothest I've done, but it's still very much passable, so please enjoy the story. But also note, all rights are reserved. I own the copyright, and any use is forbidden other than without written permission.
Chasing the Dragon. A light rain touched upon the night landscape. As it hit the smoldering rubble of the buildings, it hissed, and a bit of steam rose upward. The moon tried to peep through the clouds, at times succeeding. Wilhelmus Wolf realized that he was too late. From the look of the corpses on the ground, they had been dead for at least a couple days. Scavengers had picked the choice morsels from them and left the rest to rot. Once he added in the smells of the area and the fact that the flames were largely extinguished, it was clear that the army had done their damage and left. Wolf had been tracking their leader, Vlad Dracul, for weeks, but had been running a few days behind every time. Still, Wolf knew that time was on his side. He would catch up to Dracul, and then his business could proceed. One thing you could count on with an army on the march, a clear path to follow. Wolf had become quite adept at tracking over the years. Still, at this point, he simply needed to keep on the trail and at this point, he simply needed to keep on the trail and make up time. The army hadn't left much living in the vicinity. It seemed that even those wounded beyond the ability to fight had been killed. The flames had chased away most of the wildlife. After the conflagration had died down, though, many of the braver animals had come back. Wolf was hungry and decided to make do with what he could find of those creatures before getting back on the trail. As Wolf tracked the marching army, the trail of destruction was steady and complete. It seemed that even members of Dracul's army who had been wounded were killed and left behind. Then again, a wounded soldier hampers an army more than does a dead one. The wounded man requires helpers, eliminating more than one able body from your force. A dead one, on the other hand, only reduces your numbers by one. It's also incentive to keep fighting no matter the injuries when a man knows that only death awaits those unable to continue. It appeared that the brutal discipline might be working for Dracul. Scanning around the dead, the others far outnumbered those wearing the trappings of his army. Clearly his forces were in control of the battlefield. As he made his way to each ruined village, Wolf could tell that he was nearing his goal. The corpses were fresher. The fires were less controlled. His prey was getting closer. The hunt was drawing ever faster towards its conclusion. Dracul first came to the attention of Wolf weeks earlier. Sure, there had been vague stories about this conquering king laying waste to the countryside. Honestly, this age was full of such stories and such short-lived conquest. They generally all ended the same way. Some new conqueror arrived to unseat and kill or imprison the previous one. As time wore on, though, Wolf started to hear things that made Dracul seem to stand apart. There was a sense of fear attached to him that you didn't often hear. Once you've seen one would-be ruler on a trail of conquest, they all start to look the same. Something was different about this man, though. First were the stories of his cruelty. Cruelty was another common element of the current age. It took a special element or level of violence to elevate someone beyond the rest. Stories of terrible acts like impaling your own general's head on a pike because he wouldn't dine amidst the corpses of the vanquished was one such tale. That type of action tends to put someone on a completely different plane. Then there were the rumors. People said that he drank or bathed in the blood of defeated troops. There were those who said that he couldn't be killed. Those rumors weren't the type of thing that were often attached to conquerors. The combination of these things attracted Wolf's attention. He decided that he needed to track this man down and find out for himself if the stories were true. Either way, there would be business to which he would need to attend. A leader like that demanded it. At one point along the trail, Wolf discovered a survivor. A boy, too young to fight, had managed to hide in a pit that the villagers had used to trap animals. He had covered himself with debris. The marching army had thrown dead soldiers into the pit, he had succeeded in pretending to be dead also and had remained alive as they moved on with their march. Wolf had his first eyewitness. As would be expected, the boy was in a state of shock. He had survived when everyone he knew had died. He was a mess mentally and emotionally. Wolf was adept at a form of mesmerism, and he used that technique to work with the boy to help calm him and draw out some coherence. He began questioning him. "Boy, tell me what you saw." "They were fierce and brutal," the survivor began. "There was a viciousness to them, like a wounded beast. They would injure our fighters and then move to the next one. Once a man was unable to fight, they let him be for the time being." "What do you mean by that?" Wolf asked. "Well, once there was no more resistance, with all our men dead, too injured to fight, or unwilling to continue, we thought it was over. That's when they gathered everyone into one part of our village. I was able to see by peeking over the top of the trench. That's when the real slaughter began. They used the men and children for practice. They attacked the unarmed, and when their victims tried to run, they chased them down like animals. Many times they didn't kill them right away. Instead, they'd wound them over and over. Only if they weren't killed that way did they finish them off, and only as they were getting ready to leave." "Now, what of the women?" Wolf asked. "Their fate was worse. They made them entertain the troops while they watched the rest of the village being killed. Then once they were done, the women met the same end as the rest of our people had." With that, the boy broke down in tears. Wolf managed to calm him again before he left. Now, Wolf had some first-hand confirmation of some of the stories. Knowledge is power, and his encounter with the boy had left him feeling a bit more powerful. By the next night, Wolf had managed to catch up to Dracul's army. He decided that it would be best to gather information before heading into camp to find Dracul. That would be left to another day. Now that he was this close, could wait in 24 hours or so. Sticking to the shadows, he decided the best bet would be to find out what he could from one of Dracul's men. A sentry standing watch became easy prey, and Wolf was able to sneak up on him and capture him alive without the men sounding an alarm. Wolf took him out of the area so that he could interrogate him without being overheard. At first, the man was reluctant to talk, but Wolf was persuasive. Wolf got information on the troop tactics, travel plans, and more. He did find that some of Dracul's men did believe him to be immortal. Of course, he had to kill the man before he could leave. He couldn't risk him being found and giving up information. The man had been quite helpful, though, so he did what he had to do as mercifully as possible. Again, this encounter had left him more confident and empowered. By the following night, Wolf was ready to make his move. He managed to find his way into the camp unseen. The man the previous evening had told him where he could find Dracul, and Wolf went to the tent. He snuck in undetected and placed his hand over Dracul's mouth, preventing him from alerting his troops of his peril. Dracul struggled against Wolf, but he wasn't strong enough to break free, and eventually calmed down the inevitability of his situation. Wolf began, "I've come here specifically to find you. I came seeking information and perhaps to help you. Now, if you make a sound when I release you, you will find yourself dead before your men make their way into this tent. Then I will kill them. So when I release you, I expect you to be calm so that we can have a quiet conversation and you can hear my offer. Nod if you agree." With that, Wolf let loose enough to allow the man to indicate his agreement. Wolf released him and began, "I've been chasing you for quite some time. You've left an impressive trail of destruction behind you, exceptionally impressive. You show much potential. You have a reputation of being an almost inhuman adversary. What would you say that if I told you that I can help you realize even more power and conquest?" Dracul thought for a moment and then answered, "I am king. I have an army, or lead an army. We've been killing and taking what we wish with little resistance. What can you offer me? Wolf explained, I can help you to become what the people already think you are. What if I told you that I had conversations with Julius Caesar? What if I told you that I have lived for hundreds of years and that I can help you to also live forever? Dracul obviously didn't believe him. You can tell me what you like. It doesn't make it true. What you are offering to me is an empty promise based on a lie. What's to stop me from grabbing my sword and running you through? Wolf took the sword in his hand and said, like this, shoving the blade through his own torso. The look on his face showed some pain, but nothing like one would imagine. The blade had gone into the front of his body and was sticking out the back. With some effort, he removed the blade and stood grinning at Dracul. You think you would be the first man to try to kill me? One doesn't live for centuries without certain brave souls attempting to stop that. Wolf continued, Can you imagine what you can do if you can take a blade and just stand there as I just have? Each moment that passed seemed to show that Wolf was regaining his strength. That's not the only ability you'll have either. You'll be faster. As you could probably tell from when I overpowered you, you'll have greater physical strength. You'll be able to get into places unseen. Didn't you wonder how I got to you without being detected? Dracul didn't want to believe, but his own eyes had told him that Wolf was speaking the truth. So you're telling me that you can give me the power to survive being run through by a sword as you were? You would use whatever form of witchery you have to make me able to move into a fortress undetected? Yes, Wolf replied, and even more. Many of the people think of you as beyond death now, but I am offering to make that perception real. Dracul considered this. He was hungry for power. He had a thirst for blood and death and forcing his own will on the natural world. It seemed that this power would be the perfect tool for him. He had been largely successful thus far. He imagined the scope of destruction and conquest he could level upon the world with the type of abilities being offered. Clearly, it was an appealing vision for him. Still, every man has an angle, and Dracul wondered what the angle was for Wolf. What do you want for this sort of power? Wolf said, We want you to be part of us. There are many of us. We've existed in the background for many, many years. When situations like war happen, we get more opportunities to feed. You see, while you seem to have a taste for blood, we exist on it. It is our nutrient. In times of peace, dead bodies tend to make people nervous. They lead to detection. Times of plague or times of open warfare, though, those are opportunities. We can feed fairly freely and remain largely undetected. You've been doing a great job of giving us such opportunities, but as one of us, your quest for power and blood will be unmatched. There was a long pause. Dracul thought about the options. The gain to be had was great and with no real sacrifice to his plans. What do I have to do? Just say yes, replied Wolf. With just a little more thought, the word left Dracul's mouth. Wolf leaned forward and fangs sank into Vlad Dracul's neck.
Spooky Ventures is the home for spooky content and spooky merchandise on the web. Check it out today at spookyventures.com. And remember, always keep it spooky.